Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Yeah, we have an hour to cover all this, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, so much to cover.
We'll do this in chronological order. We'll start with basketball last night.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it was fun. Fun game. A fun style of playing. Too many turnovers, obviously.
What, 30 at halftime wasn't enough for you?
Yeah. But I'll say this. The turnovers in the final 10 minutes were all, and I talked to Mike about this after the game, were all of the variety of I'm trying to get my teammate a shot. So I'm trying to force the ball to Dunn. I'm trying to force the ball to Ray Q. I'm trying,
Mm-hmm.
And those were a lot of those. And Mike agreed with that. He says, yeah. First half, that wasn't the case. They just turned it over.
Yeah, first half was the ball was bouncing back and forth between players on each team, and it was like, who's going to turn over next? We'll find out in a little bit.
I got them all right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. But, it was great to see Kanye Clary played about the way he's been practicing and playing. I mean, that's, he's not going to get 22 on a given whatever, but he still is going to be an effective player. And as I asked Mike after the game about the ability of playing, because Mike always wants to play 2 point guards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one guy doesn't have to bring the ball up the floor all the time, which means that the guy on the off-ball guy, when you're not playing a team that presses, obviously,
mm-hmm.
right? The off-ball guy can just jog down the floor, and it's almost like a mini rest period to go up and down the floor. Then you can switch off whomever brings the ball
mm-hmm.
up. And by the time you get to February, it's going to make a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Wahab did a good job inside. You need to have a guy rebounding. Now he's got to do a better job with his footwork,
mm-hmm.
and don't have to put the ball on the floor every time. Right?
He did that a few times and turned it over.
Ball, but it's a bad habit that big guys have. Okay, boom.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to set yourself, you feel like you have to dribble the ball. All right, I understand. That's a reflex action, and I've seen
mm-hmm.
it for 1,000 years. Hicks can shoot. Jameel Brown, Dick and I made this comment over and over again last year because, look, we get to see the practices.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This guy can shoot.
He showed that last night.
But we said that. But what's keeping him from playing? Well, 2 things kept him from playing last year. One, that team had Andrew Funk. Right? It had Seth Lundy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was no room at the inn to play him because you already had the right guys playing. It's an NCAA tournament team,
mm-hmm.
for goodness sakes. And then the next part is when you were a younger player, and he played for Westtown, he played with Derek Lively.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have to play as much defense. Okay. And he knew he needed to be a better defender. And to play for Mike, you have to be able to defend. And to his credit, he's a work in progress as a defensive player, but he's working at it. He's working hard.
And he showed it last night.
And he did a good job last night. And that's the key to keeping him in the rotation. And he had 22 last night.
Mm-hmm.
Ace had a tough game, except defensively. Ace had an ace defensively.
He had about 7 almost turnovers or 7 steals as well.
I think he ended up with 5 assists or mm-hmm. something like that. But shooting the ball, he struggled. There's no getting around it.
Mm-hmm.
Leo O'Boyle, who's a terrific shooter, struggled shooting the ball last
mm-hmm.
night. All right, that happens. But they still rang up 79 points. They won 79-45. Remember last year's game? Last year's game, again, circumstances enter into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that transition game after the holidays, before you start conference play.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No, actually, it was a 2 o'clock in the
mm-hmm.
afternoon game. Okay, here we go, right? And Penn State won it 60-46. They were never in any danger of losing it,
mm-hmm.
but they won 60-46. Well, last night they won essentially the same team, 79-45, played really well. Now, Lehigh comes in Friday night at 7:30, so if you're
mm-hmm.
coming in for the Michigan game, that basketball game is going to be sitting right there. And Lehigh played Cornell last night. Cornell's a team that presses mm-hmm. the entire game. And eventually Cornell won the game, I want to say by 6, something like 84-78, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'll have a better handle on that when I really sit down. I only ran off the box score this morning, never got a chance to look at it. I can tell you right now, by 4 o'clock this afternoon, I'll have a whole handle on it. That'll be done. And, yeah, cool. Okay.
Trying to find it as quickly as we physically can here.
Yeah, it's okay. 84-78 is my guess.
84-78 is your guess. I feel like you looked that up.
No, I did not look it up.
Did not look it up.
No.
Okay.
I'm just going by what Dick and I were talking about in the postgame last night. I did run the box score off, but I didn't look at the box score because I was running off some other stuff for football I needed. So.
84-78 is the correct answer.
Okay. All right. And that was at Stabler last night. But Cornell presses. And if I recall, because Dick had it on his phone, it was on ESPN3, Lehigh led at halftime. And Cornell had a good second half, got to the lead, and then never relinquished it.
Lehigh was up 44-39 at half. Then Cornell won 45-34 second half.
Between you, Putnam, and Taylor, there was just nothing but doubters all night long.
That's okay.
And Bob tried to sabotage the pregame show, so Dick couldn't hear.
Yeah. And then I tried to sabotage the postgame. It just happened all the time. And Joe was there supervising, making sure.
Now, nobody knows this, by the way.
Yes.
He said to me, hey, we need an ID. Station identification. And we're in a commercial break, so nobody can hear this. And I said, it's 8:53. We don't need an ID yet, do we? Because it's on my iPad. And you're like, okay. It's like, we'll get to it.
Who last night on this team, of course, we didn't see Puff Johnson play. He's still coming back from injury. But who on this team yesterday were you most impressed by? Because for me, there was one guy who I saw play, at least on the defensive end, where I was like, he is a monster. And for me, that was Ray Q. Ray Q
played well.
No one was able to get past him defensively. Right. He was staying in front of everything. He looked physical. He looked like he wanted to bite out of someone's kneecap as he was playing, as Dan Campbell once said.
Well, you have to remember, he didn't really have to play a lot of defense at Missouri, Kansas City. And he was their primary offensive option. So he's had to really remake his game a little bit. Pick his spots to be selfish, pick his spots to be deferential. And that'll be a work in progress because he's a player that's going to help. He's a good player. Really good. So that's a good start. James Madison won last night over Michigan State.
That was not the only surprising game, though, yesterday. That one happened. LSU, the number 1 women's team in the nation, got rocked by Colorado.
Yeah, great win. That's a great win.
A lot of losses real early for a lot of teams.
Okay, so here we go. Michigan.
Where would you like to start with Michigan?
Right. Well, first of all, let's start with the Penn State side of it. Because, I mean, to me, there'll be the exciting stuff leading into the game will be the outside stuff. It's about the game. Yeah, internally. It's all you can think about. It's just the game. Right? And that's all I've been working on is the game. Now, you can't avoid this in our position. I mean, if people in the pregame show on Saturday want to comment about it, please have at it and go for it. I'm really going to just kind of keep a distance from it because at that point, it's about the game. It's not about all the other outside stuff.
This does not matter when you're on the field. What matters on the field is just how you play.
Right, exactly. And that's why, somebody asked me, so what do you think? And I said, well, I better read once they get to practice tonight, once they practice tomorrow and see. Because they didn't practice yesterday. Even if the Big Ten does something, Michigan will then counter with either an appeal or Harbaugh's attorneys. He'll coach the game Saturday. Okay, so it does. So if the Big Ten does quote something, there's going to be a counter to it, and he's going to coach. or if they decide to wait, he'll coach. So either way, I see no way on the face of the earth he is not coaching on Saturday.
No.
So now just go play. And to be honest with you, I prefer having him out there.
You want it to be best on best.
Guess what? When you win the game, you're going to feel great. Right? And then go from there.
I said this yesterday. I don't know if it was on the show or to someone who asked, but I was discussing about this game is going to have a lot more eyes on it than people expected probably earlier this season. We all knew it's going to be a huge matchup, but now there's more eyes on it because we're not only getting the Penn State fans and the Michigan fans, but we're getting the fans who want to see Michigan lose.
Right, sure.
That's what we're now getting.
And that's what I always talk about with the casual fan. I always talked about this with Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. He's the greatest. They could care less about the Patriots. I love Tom Brady. He's the greatest. I'm going to watch the game. I hate Tom Brady. Can't stand Tom Brady. And guess what they do? Same thing the Tom Brady lovers have. They watch the game because they want to see him lose. So it's like, and that's how you build up a huge rating. And in the end, this is about matchups. In the end, this is about, can you create a key takeaway? In the end, this is going to be how you handle situational football. In the end, it's going to be about your ability at certain moments to be patient and at certain moments when to know to be aggressive. Okay? In the end, it's going to be about that. In the end, it's going to be about a crowd that they will not in any way, shape, or form intimidate Michigan, but are you loud enough to get them off kilter where suddenly they get a couple of false starts? Right? Because they played at Nebraska, but that's not here. Okay? And they haven't really had to deal with this, with ear-piercing noise in practice and so forth. They'll have to, hey, will they be able to deal with it? Yeah. But does it throw off, when you're doing silent counts, does it throw off a couple of things because you're not effectively able to use cadence? Yes. Okay, that's where crowd noise comes in, right? It limits your options on cadence and what you can do with it to your advantage. And then you have the possibility, especially with the tackles who are the furthest away from the ball, of the possibility of false starts. Okay. And none of this has to do with what's going on here. And you know what? Just go play. Whatever the Big Ten and the NCAA wants to do, fine. When it comes up, we'll talk about it. But every day it feels like something's new. As time has gone, it has given Michigan an opportunity to come up with how they're going to counter it. So they're already in that mode. They know what they want to do to counter it, and it's going to be quick. Okay. And you just have to accept that they've already come up with the way they're going to counter it, either through appeal or legal action or something like that. And because of that, he'll coach. Okay, that's fine. Move on. The other stuff will then fall into place. Santa Ono about respecting the process. Well, that's part of a delay tactic as well. But there's also some fact to it as well, as you want to make sure that if you're going to eventually do something that's really big, make sure you have all your ducks in a row and you can't be challenged.
Don't miss. You have one shot, you better not miss it. And I want to comment on this. I don't know if you've seen this, but they're now apparently embracing the villain role. They had Ric Flair apparently come into the building.
Yes, I know.
Into Schembechler Hall. And they're like, yeah, we're the villains here. Well, this isn't... Yeah, you are the villains. Because there's allegations going around about your team. There have been for months about so many things. And now this one. You don't need to embrace the villain.
Well,
that's ridiculous.
Let me put it this way. The team that evidently wants to embrace being the villain hasn't had to worry about that because nobody has had the talent to match up with them on their schedule so far.
So what, Central Michigan? You sure?
Who did they play? UNLV, Bowling Green, East Carolina. Those are their non-conference games. And then conference-wise, the best team they probably have played, and a team I like, by the way, Rutgers.
Yeah, that's it.
I think Rutgers has been the best team they have played to this point. Rutgers, by the way, has Iowa this week. But
we've discussed that ad nauseum already.
28.5
Yeah.
the over-under, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's quite a high line if I'm going to be honest here.
Look, when it comes to Iowa football, if you decide you want to bet the over, I would strongly recommend on any Iowa game, you want to bet the over, I would strongly recommend you call the 800 number.
Or you should just do as the Joker does in The Dark Knight and just take the pile of money and just light a match on it.
Yeah, I'd call the 800 number if you need help.
Yes.
Right. So that's the way it is. Look, we're at that interesting point in this where people want something done. There's just enough gray area. You want to have it buttoned down because you don't want to rush to judgment, even though there is evidently a paper trail, a video trail. You know, there's a lot of trails that all seem to lead back to one building. But you know what? Time to go play. Time to think about J.J. McCarthy. Time to think about Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, about Cortland Loveland and A.J. Barner, and about Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson, and go through all those guys that they have. And on defense, Blake McGregor and Junior Colson and Michael Barrett as the linebackers, and Will Johnson and Bakari Page and Mike Samers still. And at some point I'll get all the names. I'll be right.
Of course. And this is where I want to go with this: is there some place you are really watching for this game, where you think that could be the matchup? I know you discussed matchups where it matter, and there's literally 22 of them going on at all times. But is there one that you're like, this one intrigues me for some reason, whether it be offense, defense, either team, special teams, wherever it might be?
I think there are going to be a lot of the mini battles you have to win during the course of the game. Well, let's go back to the Ohio State game for a moment for Penn State. What's the whole ball game against Ohio State? The whole shoot match is the 1 for 16 on third down. Well, if Penn State can go out there and go 6 or 7 for 16 in this particular game against this team to keep drives alive, keep moving, that's going to be a big difference in a game like this. Michigan is 56% this season on third down, but again, I don't know what to make of their numbers. And this is not to say they're not good. They are obviously really good. They're really, really good. But I don't have much of a barometer as to, are they really good as a 9 out of 10 or are they really good as a 6 or 7 out of 10? I don't know.
When you're playing Minnesota and Eastern Carolina, it doesn't do much.
It doesn't give you the gauge. It doesn't give you a gauge. Now next year they play Texas, for example, as a non-conference game. Okay, well now I feel like I have a gauge. When Ohio State played Oregon, I felt like I had a gauge. When they played Notre Dame, I felt like I had a gauge. Okay, let's take a long look at that. And somewhat of a gauge when they played Maryland, because Maryland went into the game 5-0. So I kind of had a feel like, okay, they're really progressing here. That looks good there. I think they could be beaten there. But this team, they've gone out and they've just methodically taken everybody apart. Well, the really good teams are not in close games. I've said that all the time. So let's use Duke basketball as an example. Duke basketball, big win, and they're the biggest game on everybody's schedule when Mike was there. Okay, big win. But then eventually you're going to get into, okay, now you're going to play North Carolina. Well, you're not going to blow North Carolina out. You're going to get into a good, tough, hard-fought game. So that part about the really good teams aren't in close games, they aren't until you finally get where it's comparable talent facing each other. Now you do get the really good games, and now you find out exactly where somebody really is. Michigan hasn't had that game yet, right? They didn't play Iowa's defense. They didn't play their non-conference. There was nobody in their non-conference of the caliber of West Virginia, right? And I'm not saying West Virginia's a top 20 team. They aren't.
They're better than Bowling Green, UNLV, and Eastern Carolina.
But they're like a tier or two above those teams. And, of course, they haven't. Of course, Penn State's played Ohio State. Okay, didn't win the game, but they played Ohio State, and then they won at Maryland. Well, guess what? Michigan hasn't played Maryland yet either. Right? Now they're going to get Maryland probably in a reeling form. I think Maryland has Nebraska this week.
They have Nebraska, but they have Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, 3 in a row, 3 actual games in a row.
Yeah. So they're obviously really good. But on a scale of 1 to 10, are they at 9.5 really good, which is how they played to this point? Or are they a 7.5 really good?
Masquerading as somewhere above that.
You just don't know. I mean, it's not, I'm not being insulting here. I'm just saying on a realistic point of view, you can only play as a team who you are scheduled to play that week. The players didn't put the schedule together. The assistant coaches didn't put together the schedule. I think they were supposed to play UCLA this year. And I can't remember the circumstances as to why they didn't.
Something happened.
Yeah, but I don't know, what happened. But don't know. Now, for Penn State, you want to see them play great in a game like this. They played great in a game like Maryland. Well, Maryland is not Michigan, but they played great against a very good team. Not a great team, but a very good team. They played great against Iowa. Shutting them out is one thing, and we know Iowa doesn't score a lot of points, but Penn State scored 31 points and ran 97 plays against that defense.
That's a pretty good gauge.
I mean, that's a gauge about against a tough defense what you can do. West Virginia's more wide open. So at least you've got a better gauge on certain things. Now, the Ohio State part, again, the 1 for 16 on third down. And by the way, the 1 was on the last drive. So they were 0 for their first 15 on third down. You weren't keeping any drives alive.
But even with that, the defense played really well. And we got an idea of that. We're like, okay, this defense is for real.
But and even defensively, they made a couple of mistakes. I mean, on the touchdown, Penn State does make a mistake. When Curtis Jacobs brought it back, they made a mistake. They held. Okay. And you know what's bad about it is that you're taught, where's your help? Well, if you decide that you're going to play, okay, and tilt to the outside, your help is the sideline. That's your help. So you're forcing him toward the sideline. If you want to play him so you're like tilted so he can go inside, you're taking him to the inside because your help is at safety. Well, on that play, Harrison goes inside, and the help is right there, Kyle. It's there. And when I mean it's there, the help is about 15 to 20 feet away. So you've got him exactly where you actually do want him, and he still grabbed him. Right I think it's the back judge. Well, what's he supposed to call? He can't just sit there and say, hey, it's a touchdown, I'm going to pick the flag up. He can't do that. Right? His job is to look over. He goes, hold, boom. He did not make the wrong call. He made the right call. So even on defense, you've got to avoid even mistakes like that. And this is, you have to be good in the trenches. Michigan, for the most part, has been really good in the trenches, for the most part. And they gave up 3 sacks on Saturday to Purdue, which I was like, oh, wow. They had the running game. Again, Ryan Walters is a good defensive coach. He was the coordinator last year at Illinois. He's a really good defensive coach. And Purdue played well defensively in a lot of ways against them. Yeah, I know how many points they ended up giving up. But they did get 3 sacks in the game. They kept Corum to 60 yards rushing. They didn't really have one of those wild rushing games. Purdue just doesn't have an offense, which is a 180 from a Jeff Brom coach team. A Jeff Brom coach team was known for really good offense. Jeff is a really good offensive coach, great offensive mind. And you can see the fruits of that at Louisville right now. Well, this Purdue team is 180 of that at the moment. Hudson Card's really struggling. It's just because I watched some of the Ohio State-Purdue tape before Penn State. And you could see some of the defensive concepts and like, hey, you know what? I can see what they're trying to do here. Offensively, you could just tell everything was a fight for them. So you can't really get a gauge even on the Michigan defense, which is only giving up 6.5 points a game. I mean,
Yeah.
They've been...
The most they've given up is 13 to Purdue.
Yeah. And, and I think some of that was the fourth quarter when they had other guys in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what's so interesting about this. Everybody knows, based on last year, that Michigan's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And there are a bunch of guys from that team last year. Loveland, McCarthy, Corum, Edwards, Wilson, Johnson. They're all back.
Mm-hmm.
So you know they're good, right? On the other side, you flip it. Will Johnson was there last year. Page has been there a couple of years. Samerstill's been there. Mm-hmm. He was actually a wide receiver at one point. Now he's a nickel. Right? Colson and Barrett were both there. So you have a lot of names that were part of the winning last year that made you impressed by how good Michigan happens to be. So you do know they're really good. But you don't know until you play this game exactly how good are they. Because to this point, they haven't been in a fight in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
To this point, they haven't really been in a fight in the third quarter. I mean, I think they've outscored the opponents like 110-0 in the third quarter or some number like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't been in that fight. And again, if, the really good teams are not in close games.
Mm-hmm.
But that dynamic changes when the talent is comparable. Okay, that kind of gets thrown out the door. They've done the expected. They were expected to win their first, 9 games?
9.
With relative ease.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what?
They did
They've
it.
done exactly what they were expected to do. They won the first 9 games with relative ease. Okay, now I'm going to bring up the one that's going to drive everybody nuts.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Don't do it, Steve. Don't do it. Whatever it is. Don't do it.
Well,
I'm scared.
okay. What don't Penn State fans like in some of these games?
Penn State makes it closer than it should be.
No. I'm talking officiating.
Wow, the officials, Steve? No way.
Okay. Michigan averages 3 penalties per game for just 25 yards a game. Holy mackerel.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be the cleanest team in America. Like 3 a game?
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't hurt themselves with penalties. They just don't.
No.
And that's just something where, just think about that during the course of the game. What if a couple things happen and they get hit with a couple of penalties? Or is it going to be the same old thing like the other day, Dennis Sutton is chasing Tagovailoa, and Jack and I are sitting there, and it's like we could see it, because we had a perfect angle. That's not a penalty? Really? Denai's looking around like, what the heck? But it's something that they play, at least statistically play a clean game.
Mm-hmm.
They don't hurt themselves. Now, they've turned the ball over a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And Penn State can force some turnovers, as we've seen.
Yes. Penn State is right now plus 16 giveaway, takeaway, which is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the NCAA.
Oh, boy. This can't be good.
Well, this is one I will clearly talk about because this is one where the NCAA is clearly in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, James Madison officials have made another plea to the NCAA Division I Board of Directors to reduce its football program's FCS to FBS transition from 2 years to 1. That way, James Madison would be eligible to compete in a postseason bowl game this season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's look at the James Madison schedule. The reason the rule is put in is that as you're transitioning, many times that the schedule is going to be still have a smattering of FCS games in there.
Mm-hmm.
Could be as many as 3 or 4 as you're transitioning over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Their schedule doesn't. They opened with Bucknell, and after that, every game since and to the conclusion of the season is an FBS opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Penn State played Delaware. Ohio State played Youngstown State. Now, Penn State and Ohio State are playing Big Ten schedules,
Mm-hmm.
okay, as opposed to Sun Belt. Right? But what does that matter? Okay? In other words, most everybody has an FCS opponent on there because scheduling is difficult in terms of trying to fill all the gaps in the schedule. And that's why the Big Ten pulled back on that, because they were having trouble, some of the schools, scheduling certain teams. So Jerry Moorhead is the NCAA Board of Directors chairman. He's also the president of the University of Georgia. And he says, look, we've embarked on this transition in ways that no other institution has since the transition rules began 23 years ago. Relief that allows our student athletes to participate in a bowl game as their play has earned is warranted.
Mm-hmm.
Our student athletes have done everything the right way, and they view the postseason prohibition in this instance as inexplicable punishment in the light of the NCAA's stated priorities. Remember, they're all about the student athlete.
Oh, yeah. That's why we kept Tej Walker out for like 5 weeks,
I know.
is because we're all about the student's experience.
But I've told you before, and I mean this, they have no problem going after the weak.
Mm-hmm.
They never have.
Mm-mm.
Right? So Walker's just a kid. Right? And even, it doesn't take a genius to look at, well, gee, the first school he was at, they canceled the season. He never played a game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he transferred so he could play. Where's the common sense here? That's why he's now playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I give North Carolina credit and Mac Brown credit. They never backed off the gas. They turned it into a constant pressure campaign to finally get him to play. But it was the right thing to do. You have to do the right thing. James Madison is not playing a traditional transitional schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Let him go to a bowl game. Just let him. Let him compete for the conference championship. Maybe they're the team that ends up taking the group of 5 bid to a major bowl.
Mm-hmm. They mentioned in their letter they are 15-3 against FBS teams the past 2 seasons, and the only program to be ranked in the AP poll in each of the 2 years while transitioning from FCS to FBS.
Right.
That's pretty darn good.
Yes.
And they're a good team. I know they just lost, their edge for the season.
Yes.
So that's tough because he was on pace to, I believe, get close to Terrell Suggs' record of sacks in a season. But they're good. Let them play.
It's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as you're trying to go through the weeds of the Michigan situation, right, which is going to be murky. I mean, I know you possibly have money trails, you possibly have video trails and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't that. This is a case of being able to sit there and look at the schedule and say to yourself, they played 12 games, 11 are against FBS, 1's against an FCS team. That's Bucknell. They're doing it the way we want teams to do it to be eligible for a bowl game.
Mm-hmm. You know what the NCAA needs?
It's an easy answer.
The NCAA needs a win, and this is a win. If they say you are bowl eligible, you can play in your conference championship game, or maybe they just say you're bowl eligible, but you can't play in this, but we'll basically consider you wherever. Maybe there's some sort of compromise here, but at the end of the day, give them a shot.
Well,
they deserve it.
I mean, you're eligible for a bowl game. It's up to your conference now to say whether we are putting no prohibitions on you. If your conference says you're eligible for the championship game, go ahead and play.
Yeah.
Right, and then put it on the conference and say yes. When it comes to the championship game, but they're eligible for a bowl game. No offense. You sit down in a conference room with 3 to 5 people. This is not hard. See, that's what bothers me about this. This one with James Madison is not difficult.
No.
Now, if they still had a couple, even if there's another FCS game in there and it's 2 and 10, okay, now let's discuss this. If it's 3 and 9, we really have to discuss it. But when it's 1 and it's the opening game and the next 11, I mean, this should be a meeting that lasts 5 minutes.
Walk in. Oh, what are we discussing today? How's everyone's day going? How was your weekend? That's 4 minutes and 30 seconds of it. Oh, James Madison wants to play. Yeah, cool. Everyone good? Vote yes. Right. Good. Let's go.
Just put the schedule up on the board. Okay? FCS team, then FBS, B, all the way down. You go, hey, guys, this is pretty easy. They're in. Let them do it.
Most of the time we spent asking what the coffee order is.
All right.
I want to change subject real quick.
Sure.
So we discussed officiating and we discussed time taking forever and all those things.
Yeah.
Don't know if you saw this yesterday, but this was going on throughout the day. Is Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur were playing a match, soccer. Yeah. Very big match. And the video assistant referee has been something we've discussed before.
Yeah.
Here. The idea of re-refereeing something that goes on the field.
Right.
It has now gotten to the point where over the past basically 3 months, referees in soccer, especially English, have been just terrified of making a wrong mistake.
Right.
Because there's been multiple cases where it's been a blatant obvious error and it has not been caught, or VAR, video assistant, has messed it up more.
Right.
And it's been spiraling slowly.
Right.
And we got to a point yesterday where during the Chelsea-Tottenham match, there was the first half had 59 minutes played from start to the halftime. Right. 59 minutes. How many of that do you think was actual play?
Actual play?
Actual play.
I'm going to say actual play where the ball was moving. I'd say 36 minutes.
23.
Wow.
So under half of it was the ball moving. Most of the first half was spent sitting, waiting around for the video assistant to review things. They added in 12 minutes of time and they ended up using an extra 3 minutes on top of that, or whatever it was. It just kept going. The game grew.
Right.
It was one of the longest games I've ever seen. And most of it was because referees didn't know what was going on. Video assistant looked at 7,000 things. They're looking at everything. And for some reason, there's still things they get wrong.
I know.
How? How do you have a video assistant referee, someone who's watching the game from all these camera angles, and you still miss things? It happens in every game. One of the games earlier this season, one of the players, Luis Diaz for Liverpool, scores a goal. It's called offsides by the ref on the field. They say, okay, we'll go check in the video assistant, see if he was offsides or not. He was onsides by a good foot or so. It was clear. It's like, okay, that was a mistake. He's onsides, give the goal.
Right.
The video assistant thought the ref had given the goal, not the offsides. So they said, yep, looks all good. They start play again. And the video assistant's like, oh, we thought it was a goal. And they're like, we can't change it now. Okay. And then Liverpool go on to lose the match because of it.
Well, we saw this in the Iowa-Minnesota game. The call on the field on the Cooper DeJean punt return was a touchdown. Right? Well, P.J. Fleck did not challenge because it was late in the game anyway. He didn't challenge. But every play is allegedly reviewed. Well, so they're reviewing it. And they called down and said, look, we want to take a closer look. Well, replay officials are the ones that overturned it. And as I pointed out, Jack Ham and I were watching on the plane on the way back. And the first thing we thought of was, well, it was so close to the sideline, we thought, well, maybe he stepped out of bounds. Well, to the credit of NBC, they had a shot right down the sideline. You can see he's in by, 8 inches to a foot in bounds. I mean, it's not even close. Like, okay, well, that's a touchdown. Then they kept looking at it and looking at it. Jack says, what the heck do you think they're looking at? I says, God, I don't know. I said, they can't be looking for penalties because you're not allowed to do that. I said, I wonder if they're said something about maybe he called a fair catch. He goes, oh. So then we watch it again. because they keep showing it. So now instead of watching where his foot happened to be, his left foot when he cut it back, right? Now the two of us are watching to see okay, here's the punt and it's solo on him. Well, he does put his left arm out like that, and we're like, well, that's not a fair catch signal. Yet, as I told you in the preseason, I was there when the officials were explaining to the Penn State football team about fair catch signals on kickoffs and punts and how they needed to be careful of arm movements when they did it because it would be called a fair catch, which gave me a perspective, at least to explain to the audience about the play. But who made the call? Well, the call was made in Chicago. It wasn't made on the field. On the field, it was a touchdown. So, I mean, video is not the be-all, end-all. I'll never forget the Penn State-Nebraska game at Nebraska. Bill O'Brien was the coach. Matt Lehman called a touchdown on the field, sticks the ball over, gets knocked out of his hand, right? And it got overturned. Really? And Penn State lost the game because of the call. What two of us are overturned? How can you overturn that? That's at minimum stands as called. And like I said, I've seen more mistakes on the video replay part in the last, how long has it been in there now? 18, 19 years? I've seen more mistakes by them where I sat back and didn't agree with it than they did with the guys on the field. Or just feel like it's got to be a little cleaner as to what they're seeing and why. And you can't always be looking for a fingernail or did I see a glance? Did the ball change direction? I'm talking soccer now. Did he hit a body part, like glance off on the way out? Did the ball change spin? Just go play. You can't tell in 45 seconds. You got to move on.
So this is my thing. The reason VAR is there, and this is the thing that every official states, is it is there for clear and obvious errors. If there is a clear and obvious error, we will tell the referee, please go and look at this.
Yeah.
It has not become that. It has now become, if there is an infinitesimal issue, not just offsides. Offsides is another thing.
Sure.
But when there's an infinitesimal issue, they go and review it.
Right.
But they keep missing big issues. So my team, Arsenal, playing Newcastle last week. Early in the match, one of the Newcastle midfielders, Bruno Guimaraes, is flying all over the place, making rash tackles. Should probably have a yellow card already. Doesn't.
Sure. Right.
One of the players for Arsenal's Jorginho makes a pass. About 3 seconds later, Bruno Guimaraes comes in and elbows him in the head. Right. It was blatantly clear to everybody it happens. You watch the video, it looks even worse.
Right.
That it's clear he's not even attempting to get towards the ball, nothing. He elbows him just straight in the head. It's not like an elbow onto his elbow to kind of shove him, say, I'm here. No. It's to the head. He raised his elbow up, hit him.
Sure.
Referee doesn't see it somehow.
Of course.
Somehow doesn't see it.
Right.
And then in the next match, there's something else happened, and a player gets lightly touched here in the chest, square in the chest here, gets shoved out, and they say that you tried to hit him in the face and gives a yellow but says you're almost at a red.
Right.
And he hit him in the chest. And it's like, what? How do you catch this? And how does this count as being a hit to the head, but an elbow to the skull isn't?
Right.
How are you looking at one, not the other? Why are you calling one, not the other?
Yeah.
And they say they have all these camera angles, but they still miss things. Arsenal lose because a ball is out of play. It is clearly over the line. And then the ball's whipped back in, and it's a goal.
Right.
And then Arsenal say, well, that's over the line. Every camera angle we see and we're given, it's clearly over. But they're like, no, we have a camera angle for it.
Right.
And it's like, well, do you? Because apparently every camera angle they have is given to NBC and all these people to use.
Sure.
And then they're like, we don't have a camera angle that shows this. So how do they have one that we don't see ever?
I don't.
It makes no sense.
That's why everybody. I was talking to a Big Ten official last week. And I said, with all due respect to all the video that we have, I said, I don't mind if it's a supplement that can help out and be used quickly and efficiently. But I don't want the human element taken out of sports. if you're going to have humans coaching it, humans playing it, humans announcing it, humans cheering for it, I want humans. And guess what? Coaches make mistakes. Players make mistakes. Announcers make mistakes. Fans make mistakes. And officials make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes along the way. Do any of the group, the 5 I just mentioned, does a head coach want to make a mistake?
No.
Does a player want to make a mistake?
No.
Does a fan want to make a mistake?
No.
Does the referee want to make a mistake?
No.
And do we in the booth want to make a mistake?
No.
We all are trying to not make mistakes. All of us, including the fans in the stands. Okay? They may be passionate about their teams, but they don't want to they're going nuts and they're throwing stuff in the court and the whole thing or on the field and whatever. And all of a sudden you look at it and later go, oops, they got the call right. Ooh.
Yeah.
Right? So nobody wants to make mistakes. Video doesn't solve everything. It doesn't. Right? And now we're looking for fingernails and a toe or a glance or did the ball change direction? Right? And we're wasting time. Right? Wasting it. Just take it. Okay, guess what? We can't tell go play. Can't tell go play. And despite the fact we have HD cameras, they are not done in such a way where it's clear all the time because when there's movement, everything's moving and you don't quite see it. Just like I always love the one, I'll give you one, the Eagles-Cowboys game. Okay, Eagles-Cowboys game, first drive of the game. And in Philadelphia, you converted on a 4th down and it's only, they spotted the ball wrong. He was down about 2 to 2.5 yards from the marker because his knee went down. And instead they marked him in the end about a half yard away and they converted on 4. A gutsy call. It was only going to be a gutsy call if it was 2.5. He'd have punted. And they scored in that drive. In the game they won by 4 points. All right. Well, he didn't spot the ball right. Replay would have shown that he spotted. But guess what? That's part of the human error. I mean, the referees on the field made a mistake. Okay, well, it helped Philadelphia. They won the game. I mean, you always look at the end of the game. It's like, I always tell everybody, it's a big wide world out there. You got to look at the first 59 minutes, too. Things happen. And that was one of them. So, people make mistakes. And we're spending too much time looking for, did that ball turn just a bit? Or did it hit the fingernail? Is that toe in?
They're looking for the hills they'll die on. Yeah. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the Cooper DeJean elbow just too high. Yeah. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for the actual issues of someone getting elbowed in the skull. They're not looking for, was he in or out of bounds? They're looking for the infinitesimal thing on these out of the 500,000 rules they have, these 10 rules matter most to them.
Sure.
But we care about the other 499,000 that are out there too. Yeah. And they don't seem to care about them. It's like, yes, some of these things are gray. That's fair.
People came there to watch the 23 minutes of that first half where the ball was in play. That's why they paid their ticket. Okay? That's why they paid for their ticket. Okay? The other 36 minutes where the ball was not in play, being reviewed, extra time, things like nobody wanted to watch that. Nobody wants to watch that. They want to watch the ball in play. That's what they want to see. Okay? Nobody, not even the family of the referee, paid to see them ref.
No.
And that's not the guys in the field, by the way, on the pitch. That's not the guys in the pitch. It's the video guys.
Yeah. The guys in the pitch make the call, and you usually generally trust what they're saying. And they're like, I would rather us not have VAR. That is their current argument, is people saying, I'd rather us not have it. And I know the one system that is being used a lot of places around the world that was used in the World Cup was the instantaneous offsides, basically. It's like it'll spot the millimeters, but it's within about 3 seconds, it'll tell you if they're on or offsides. Right. And that is the one thing they use. England is the one place that said, we don't want it. Right. And that's a place where an offsides currently takes a decade, and they somehow get it wrong. It still happens. You shouldn't be able to get it wrong. There was a time last year, and we have not been able to discuss this, my team Arsenal, we're in a title charge. We're winning. We're feeling great. It happened. I was a week I was not here with you, and Jason was. I know. Big, tough week. Arsenal lose the game 1-0, or they draw 1-1, or whatever it was. Right. And those extra 2 or 3 points could have helped us to try and win the title. And the referee somehow draws the line incorrectly. Instead of drawing a straight line, he draws a diagonal line.
Right.
How is that possible?
I don't know.
How? Is there not a way it just immediately goes straight down and you kind of just like move it to where you need it to be? He drew a diagonal line.
I know.
And they were like, oh, that's our bad. Well, everyone was like, you're bad. Yeah, you are. How are you messing this up so poorly? You have one job, to draw a line straight across and move it to the last man. And you messed it up.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be possible. It doesn't seem like a complex thing, but they mess it up. I'd rather us have no refereeing, video refereeing at all, and trusting the refs in the field, because that at least is human error.
Right.
That's going to happen. Things are going to get called. Right. Things are going to get missed, whatever. But now in every sport, we are over-refereeing, over-analyzing things, and when calls are missed on the field by human error, and then they are missed by video, it's 1,000 times worse.
Right.
Sorry, that's my mini rant.
No.
Had to get out a lot of energy.
Good. I'm glad we're able to do that. This is what we do on the show. We allow you to walk out of here feeling better about life.
Yes.
Because you were able to vent and not hold it in.
Yes.
So tomorrow, we'll have a couple of guests on the show. Donnie Collins is going to join us tomorrow. Neil Coulong, or excuse me, Frank Bodani will join us tomorrow.
Oh.
York Daily Record. We'll get Frank on the show. So, yeah.
It's an action-packed show this week.
And don't forget to vote. Kyle has a series of writing candidates he'd like you to discuss.
Yes, please vote in Steve Jones for comptroller.
Absolutely not. I can tell you right now, no. I will decline to serve.
Who should be comptroller, you or Bob Taylor? Who do you trust more? Or Jason Lord? I'll let you decide. Vacate the position?
They have to leave the ballot blank.
Yeah. Tough ballot. Heartbreaking ballot, Steve. You're breaking hearts here. But
I'm here to protect America. All right. Talk to you tomorrow.
That we will do. And thank you, of course, for listening in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones. What a day. What a day it was, Steve. What a day.
Had a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.